My name is Lucille Lewis. I was Lucille Elizabeth Trent at the time that I came to work for Pauline Trigère. I came as a part-time worker, working after school from 4 to 7. That was in January 1944. How old was I?
Yeah.
I was almost 19, 18 and a half, because I came from Virginia and we didn't go to school, so my first schooling was New York, and I didn't really start formal school till I was 10 years old. So consequently, I was never really in my right class, and not being overly bright, I didn't catch up all the way. So I was like about a year and a half behind. And I had to have a job. So I had to work after school in order to finish my last year. And I worked from 4 to 7 in the evening, and I used to make shoulder pads. The day that I came, Miss Trigère was on crutches. She had had some accident skiing. I remember that vividly. Mr. Trigère was the one that hired me, but Miss Trigère had to okay it. I started making shoulder pads. That was my first job. And then I became a stamper and an assorter. That's after the garments are cut. You take the pattern and you put a chalk mark where the dots and whatever, the buttonholes or whatever goes.
That's called a stamper?
Yeah, stamper and assorter. You stamp them and you assort them, put them in bundles for the operator.
When you came to get the job, what did you ask for?
I didn't. I didn't seek the job. I was in Mabel Dean Baker High School, which is a women's garment trade school, and they had a employment service at the school, and I desperately needed a job because otherwise I could not finish school. And I had a very nice teacher, and she used to let me work in the cafeteria, teacher's cafeteria, in order to have money to come to school. And she was looking out for me for a job, and this job came through, and I got it.
Your rings are making noise.
Sorry.
So I'm going to see if I can deaden it. So you just came into the building?
They evidently, Trigère must have requested someone to work after school, and they picked me, they chose me, and I went, and I was hired, and that's the beginning.
Okay. So what did the place look like?
It was small.
Where was it?
On 57th Street. I think it was 37 at the time. Sometimes I get confused. Was 2 buildings on 57th Street. One was 37 and one was 29. And I don't remember I think it was 37 that we started first, and then we moved to 29.
Why did you move?
Because the business grew larger. The first place was very small, and then the second place was larger, and the third move was to 550 on 7th Avenue.
So describe the first place.
It was small, and everything was like on one floor. Showroom this way.
To the right?
Yeah. The switchboard was right as you got off the elevator, and the office is
to the left.
To the left. And Miss Trigère's office was one door to the right from the regular office, and the workroom was on the other side.
Did Sioma, you call him Robert, right? Did Robert and Pauline share an office?
I think they shared an office at that time. It was very small. It was very small.
Mm-hmm. So tell me your impressions of them. Did they seem very sophisticated? Did they seem really, tell me what you thought when you first saw these 2 foreigners.
I was so desperate for a job. I was just very glad to get a job. I didn't even think about that. But the Mr. Trigère impressed me because he was so, what's the word I'm looking for? Like Adolphe Menjou, he reminded me of a movie star. He was very fastidious, he was tall, he was elegant, he was all those things, and he was very sweet and charming. He was as nice as anybody could be. The way he made me feel, it was if I was somebody very important. It's not that I was a little kid just, starting out, but he was very, very sweet. And
how did she make you feel?
I don't remember my exact first impression, but the first thing that I remember about her was the being on the crutches. And I don't remember.
Did you work with her?
Not in the very beginning, but after with the shoulder pads and the stamping, you get bored after a while, and then I wanted something else to do, and then I was like her gal Friday.
What was that like?
Which was very traumatic. That was not for me at all. I tried though, and
well, we know what she's like today. How did she compare then to how she is?
The same.
The same.
Right, because like one time, to give you an example, one time she was getting ready for a trip to Europe, and my kids were small. I had to come in on a Sunday with my 2 kids to help her get her clothes and things ready to go on this trip.
This must have been 1947.
No.
That was her first trip to Europe.
No, it wasn't 47 because I had 2 kids. And Butch was born in 47, and Stevie wasn't born until 51, so it had to be later.
So that one was an infant?
Yeah, one was, little. He could walk, toddle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe it was 53.
Probably 52.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 52.
And you were expected to do this?
She just said, come and help. So were you going to say no? Mm-hmm. What am I going to say? You have the kids, bring the kids. So how do you say you can't bring the kids? So I brought the kids. Mm-hmm. And they ran around, and I did whatever she wanted me to do. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's not easy to say no to Miss Pauline Trigère. Not at all. You know that,
Were you
Jane.
afraid of losing your job if you said you couldn't do a thing like that? Was that an issue?
Well, I needed a job, so that would have made a difference at that time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How many people worked there then, in that first place?
I don't really remember. Mildred was in the shipping room. Belle Allenberg was in the office. Fanny Ettinger was head of production. Andrew, I remember, was the presser. There were some operators, but I don't remember exactly how many.
Vincent was there?
Vincent came later. Vincent came, not when I first came there. He came after the war.
What's the other man's name who was?
Joe DeCroce. Joe's father was there, his Andrew, and he was a presser at that time. But they came after they came out of the service. There was a woman who was head of the sample room. Her name was Ellen McQueenie. And there was a man in the showroom whose name was Bob Shepard. Him I remember.
Why?
Because he was there when she was going to hire Lucy. That's why I remembered it. And he went on vacation, and she hired Lucy, and they sent him a telegram that his service was no longer, and that thing upset me. I couldn't, to this day, I remember that. I don't know why, I know how I needed a job, and I just felt that they should not have let that man go on vacation and spend the money for, I don't know if the man had money or not, Janie, to be very honest with you. He might have been wealthy, I don't know. But I just felt within myself that it was a terrible thing to do. But as I got older, and, look, it's not a terrible thing. They do it all the time in business now. But at that
It
time...
may still be a terrible thing.
Yes, but they do it. I mean, it wouldn't shock me now if I saw
So
it.
it's scary every time you go on vacation. There may be a telegram. Come back.
Not necessarily.
But it's not as if, did he do terrible work?
No, he was a nice man. He was a salesperson.
So it gives you a
and
sense of your uncertainty of your own job.
I just thought it was a terrible thing to do, to let someone go, I guess, from my point of view, because I know how badly I needed a job.
Mm-hmm. So what was he doing in the showroom?
He was a salesperson.
Uh-huh. So what was Mr. Trigère doing?
Mr. Trigère was also, he used to sell also. He used to go into the stores and take orders and visit the people and whatnot.
What did you think were his other responsibilities? What did it look like? Or if you know precisely, tell me. But if you
Not
weren't-
really. He was a boss. At that time I didn't delve into what meant by being a boss, what was his particular, portion at that time. I really...
Who would give orders, him or Pauline?
They both did at some time.
Did they seem to work well together?
At that time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shout at each other? Did you pick up any sense of friction between them?
Not at that time.
Because you weren't aware of it or because it wasn't there?
Maybe I wasn't aware of it.
Did you see Pauline's sons?
Yes.
Did they used to come to the office?
Not often, but they used to come, yes. I remember Philip when he, on the time of his bar mitzvah, he had beautiful curly hair and a temper.
He had a bar mitzvah?
Yeah.
Did everybody get invited?
No. I don't know who got invited. I didn't. But I remember the thing with the bar mitzvah, and he had to go for classes or something like that. I remember that. I remember JP as being very handsome. He was a good-looking young person. Very good-looking.
Did they used to come on their own there just to visit?
I don't know if they came on their own or if they were summoned or what the situation was, but they didn't come that often. Once in a while.
So your first memory of Philip was when he was 13?
Yeah, the time of his bar mitzvah.
Okay. I didn't realize he was that old. Okay. So have we described the place? When did they move to the next one?
I don't remember the exact date. I think maybe we were at the first place a year or two, and then they moved to the second place.
And meantime, you were still in this high school coming in the afternoon?
No, I worked only from January 1944 until June 1945, part-time. In June 1945, I went on full-time.
Uh-huh. And what were your duties then?
I think that's around the time that I became like her girl Friday. And then I used to help Belle Allenberg in the office. Whatever anybody needed to do, Lucille did it.
Uh-huh.
And then the woman at the switchboard taught me to do the switchboard. And then I used to relieve her and whatnot. But...
So when did when did Joe Peck come?
Joe Peck came at 5:50, and he came, yes, much, much later, after Dorothy Marcus.
Who was Dorothy Marcus?
Dorothy Marcus was the daughter of Dave Marcus, who they hired as a production man when we moved to 550. And I don't know if he was the first one or the second one, because there's been so many. But anyway, he's probably the first one, because when Dave Marcus came, they let Mildred go. Mildred used to be in the shipping room.
Oh. Well, let's go back to 57th Street. So you moved to the second place, which was bigger?
Yes. And 2 floors.
2 floors?
Yeah.
So tell me, how was the setup there?
The cutting room was upstairs, I believe. And Margie Kincaid, who was the piece goods person at that time, she was on this floor. It was 2 floors. The office and showroom was from 1 floor, and like the sample room was on the same floor with the office. And the cutting room, I think, was upstairs. And the shipping was on this floor, too. Yeah.
What floor was that?
I think it was the 11th and 12th floor.
See how good your memory is?
I think. I know one was the 12th floor.
Remember the phone number there?
No. No, I don't remember the phone number. No.
So what did the showroom look like? Did this place get fancy?
No. It was 57. But it was a nice place anyway. It didn't look like a factory.
Mm-hmm. What did the showroom look like?
Like somebody's living room, with chairs and tables.
What color was it?
I think the rug was beige. It had a row of windows.
Did they have a stage?
No. Not in that showroom.
Was it green and white?
I don't remember. If it was green, it was pale green.
Yeah.
Pale green.
Uh-huh. So what
like a celadon, if it was green, it's like a gray. It would have been a grayish green because I see it as being like beigey.
Uh-huh. So, and did they have fashion shows there? Not yet.
No.
So when did the fashion show business start?
At 550.
Only
That's the first
550?
time that I saw a fashion show.
So the showroom was in order to show the clothes to people who'd come in to buy.
Mm-hmm.
How would people know that the collection was ready to be looked at?
Well, Mr. Trigère would call them on the phone.
And people would come over and every single dress was shown to them with a model? The way I remember at 550? It was shown on a hanger?
It might have been shown on the rack on the hanger. I don't remember. And I don't remember too many models on 57th Street.
So you think people that only got to see the clothes on a hanger? Does that seem possible?
When it's small, it's possible, yes. But
see?
I may not be, I
that's
don't
okay.
remember exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't remember models per se like, on 57th Street.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a fitting model, and they fit and she would put things on, but I don't
remember her name?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
They were very skinny in those days.
They're still skinny.
Well, I remember they got breasts later on. For a long time, they didn't even have bellies. Used to stuff the bras with tissues.
Yeah.
So where did you move on to in terms of obligations in 57th Street? That's where you remained a girl Friday.
Yeah, and the switchboard and part-time office and whatnot, or whatever anybody wanted to do.
Where were you living?
In the St. Nicholas houses, the projects at 127th Street, 217 West 127th Street on the 14th floor.
You remember the phone number?
No.
So you take the Lexington IRT?
No.
And walk over?
No.
217 what?
West 127th
So you take the 7th
Street.
Avenue IRT down? How did you get to work?
It's take the bus.
Oh, the bus.
Yeah.
How long did it used to take you?
Not long, maybe half hour.
Half hour. And people used to bring their lunches with them or go out and buy something? How did it work in those days?
Most people brought their lunch.
Did you too?
Yeah.
People would eat there or they would leave the building?
At their desk or
At
wherever they were at their workplace.
So you didn't have like time to go off at lunch?
You had a lunch break, yes. You could go if you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some people did. I didn't because I had, right. I had my food and I ate, and that was that.
So what was it like working there? Was it fun? Did you enjoy it, or was it tense? Give me a sense of how you felt going to work. Did you look forward to it, or did you hate going to work? What were the things you looked forward about, and what were the things that you were anxious about?
I don't remember being anxious, just that getting to the job, getting a job, having a job, because I had 2 kids and no husband. So I had to have a job.
Where was your husband?
My husband and I were divorced. We were separated, but I was 5 months pregnant. So I had to have a job. It
wasn't so common, divorce in those days, was it?
No, it was a big stigma. I didn't tell anybody that I was separated for a whole year.
So you're a modern woman.
I don't know if I'm modern or not, but I know I didn't tell anybody that I was separated from my husband for 1 solid year. And that's living a lie.
Well, yes, especially since if you don't have somebody to take care of your kids, it makes you wonder why don't...
My mother-in-law took care of the kids. But,
so you lived with them? Or she would come in?
No, my first, after I got married, I lived with my mother-in-law for about a year. And then I moved into the Quonset huts, 1507 Lafayette Avenue in the Bronx. And I took the bus.
Real Quonset huts? This was for, what year is this?
1950.
This is after the war, so they were putting up as fast as possible also for housing.
And they were nice because you had your little Quonset hut. One lived on the front, one lived on the back, and you had a little yard. You could put flowers and whatever. It was nice. It was like having your own little house. And I used to take the crosstown bus to my mother-in-law's house, then take the bus down. I'd drop off Butch. And then after Stevie was born, I'd drop off to both of them.
So your day started really early.
And bring the kids, drop them off, then go to work, go back home, pick them up, and then go back home.
And where was she?
She lived on Edgecombe, 369 Edgecombe. That's in Manhattan.
So you had to
come from the Bronx
all over the place
to Manhattan, to my mother-in-law, then down to 57th Street.
I don't know where Edgecombe is.
It's what they call Harlem. It's like Washington Heights.
So that's quite a long... where in the Bronx were you?
1507 Lafayette Avenue. It's not... It sounds far away, but it's not really. You take a bus, and you come across on 155th Street.
Oh, so it wasn't that
It wasn't
short.
that...
But you have to get 2 kids ready,
right,
dressed,
and get the bus, right.
them out.
And the bus takes maybe 20, 25 minutes.
So you started your day really early. What time did you have to get to work?
9 o'clock. You have to be there by 9.
And what time did you leave?
5:30, sometimes 6. My time was 40 hours a week. That was the time at that time. My week was a 40-hour week. My first week pay was $7, and when I came full-time, it was $12.
And how did that compare to the rest of the population, since that doesn't mean very much to me right now?
That was fine, because at that time, the bus was 5 cents, and a loaf of bread was 10 cents. You can probably do more with my $12 then than I can do with whatever I'm making now. Probably went further.
Really?
Because things weren't high then.
So, you say your mother-in-law, but your father-in-law was there too? Okay.
Yeah. But he worked on the railroad. He was worked on the New York Central Railroad, so he wasn't there all the time.
But I know that in later years, I don't know about the mother-in-law, but I know that you had your father-in-law.
My mother-in-law died in 1988, the year before Butch died. And my father-in-law is my responsibility now.
Yeah, how's he doing?
Oh, he's fine. I spoke to him this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
And his son, where is he?
He died.
He died.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to 57th Street. Let's go back to or less emotional thing?
57th Street is not that vivid in my memory.
Okay. But it was like around the corner from Tiffany's, and it was a kind of a...
Yeah, it's a
Fancy
beautiful
place to be.
area. Yeah.
Do you remember enjoying walking there?
Yeah,
Looking
it's
at
not
windows
looking at the
and
window of Henry Bendel.
Mhm.
And there was a doorman at Henry Bendel. He was short, and he used to have like a little pillbox hat, and his uniform was brown. And I like to watch that. It's nice.
It's a nice place to work. I mean, it's much nicer than 40th Street and 7th Avenue.
Well, 40th Street and 7th Avenue is much nicer than 57 West 39th Street.
Yes, I'll grant you that. But in terms of the way the neighborhood looked, 57 was
It was
really
very elegant.
elegant.
It was elegant.
It was
That's
in the middle
why I
of the retail
said, right,
industry.
it was beautiful section right around the corner from Central Park and everything like that. It was nice. You didn't know it was a factory there.
That's right.
Because
So how did people treat you? I mean, let's talk about another issue. Were you the only black person there?
No, there was a woman named Mildred Hunter, a very fastidious woman, dressed very well, and to me, what I would say well educated, because I wouldn't consider myself well educated, but I would remember
Her as being that.
that's how she struck me.
Okay. And what was the atmosphere in terms of blacks and whites and industry and that kind of thing at that time? Is there something interesting to tell me about that?
No, at that time, blacks had mostly menial jobs. You didn't have any jobs with big salaries or positions or anything like that. You were the low man on the totem pole.
The low man on the totem pole. And who was a high man on the totem pole in terms of the workforce? Italians? Jews?
Most of the machine operators were either Italian or Jewish.
These are men and women?
At the beginning, it was more men than women. But
That's interesting, actually. When do you think that switch came? Did it come slowly?
I think it was a gradual thing, and probably in the late 50s that you got mostly women.
Sewing. And it was always men ironing.
Yes, men were always the pressers. The women were always the handwork, the finishers, and that sort of thing.
Right.
But the men were the operators, the tailors.
And were there a lot of immigrants? Or were you maybe not aware?
Maybe I wasn't aware.
And were people respectful of each other?
Yeah, I remember that as being everybody was very nice and whatnot. But mostly people in the workplace, they're nice with each other. It's when you get outside the door that they sometimes act differently.
And did that happen?
Yeah, sometimes people, they talk, and even the buyers, they would talk to you when you get in the elevator, they didn't speak. That one thing that I think upset me was a woman by the name of Maria Finkel. She's a Jewish lady, and she's what they call a resident buyer. Okay, when she comes to Trigère, was very friendly with me and whatnot. There was another resident buyer who passed away, and she was very fond of me.
What was her name?
Her name was, what is her name? Her first name was Helen. I have to think of her last name. It'll come back to me. I just see her face. Anyway, her last name will come back to me. Anyway, I went to the funeral. Maria Finkel came in to the funeral, which was in that synagogue up there, or whatever it's not a synagogue, but
Riverside.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's not really a
Funeral
synagogue. Yeah, it's whatever it is. But everybody had to put the thing on their head and whatnot. She came in, sat as close to me as you are, and never spoke.
Do you think maybe she didn't...
Got in the elevator with me at 5:50 and did not speak. And the next time she came in to Trigère to buy, I told her about it, that I was very upset. And she said, "Oh, you misunderstood."
Okay.
Oh, that wasn't that far ago. That wasn't that long ago.
Recently.
That that was within the
Because this
last...
doesn't sound like somebody who's
This
got
is-
the low man on the totem pole job who might be afraid
No,
of
this
losing her
is-
job. It
this
sounds
is-
like a more mature Lucille.
This is not that long ago. It's maybe 10 years ago.
Right. But you were a more confident person to be able to say that. To
But-
come up. Would you have done that kind of thing when you were...
No.
No, okay, that's what I was trying to think. Okay. But way back then, I'm interested in the 40s and 50s in terms of
There was a woman, I don't remember the name of the store, but the store was in Jackson, Mississippi. And she came to buy at Trigère. We were at 550 at that time. And she came in the back with Mr. Trigère. And she spoke to him and whatnot. And I knew that she was unhappy with the fact that I was, whatever it was, waiting on her or whatever it was. And she spoke to him about it. And he told her that if she didn't want to come back, he wouldn't be upset. But that if she didn't want to come back, it was all right with him.
So was this something that was...
Not done at that time.
That's what I was asking you. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that must have given you a very comfortable feeling.
Yes.
Okay. What, I remember some of these buyers coming to the house from all sorts of different countries, and I remember states, and I remember an experience of finding people who thought very differently than we did about all sorts of subjects, including that one. That was my first experience of that was through these buyers. Tell me about Robert Trigère and the buyers. How did you observe him doing his job? What his style? How did he do things?
He was a very genteel, elegant person. Very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Gallant.
Gallant, yes. Just warm and friendly and...
Do you think that the clothes would have sold themselves anyway, or was he doing more than he needed to do in terms of his gallantry?
I'm sure that the way he presented himself and the way he worked with the people, with the buyers, I'm sure that it had a lot to do with it. The clothes had their own merit and everything like that. I'm not saying, but I'm sure that the way he conducted himself with them, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but he was very elegant and very considerate and very...
So, but there were other people who were selling clothes. Did everybody have their own clients? Like Robert would have his clients, and then...
Well, some people would, yeah. Some people, he had certain people that he worked with, and if there was someone else in the showroom, they had people that they worked with. And some buyers asked for him specifically, or they would ask for someone else specifically.
And was he in charge of the sales staff?
He was like in charge, yes.
And what is it that you do with those cards in the back in the shipping department? When did you join the shipping department?
When we moved to 550 and Dave Marcus came, he brought his daughter Dorothy. They let Mildred go, and Dorothy was in charge.
Of?
Made her in charge of this whole shipping room, where she entered the orders.
And Dave Marcus
was the production man. Yeah, he was in charge of production man. And when he came, he wanted even me to go. I remember that. I don't remember how it was resolved. I know that I didn't leave, so I'm sure that either Miss Trigère or Miss Trigère, one of them, must have spoken to him, but I know that he wanted me out also, not only just Mildred, but I know that I was, as far as he was concerned, I should have been gone too.
For reasons of race?
I don't necessarily think it might have been reasons of race, but every time a new broom comes in, it sweeps and they bring their own and whatever. So I don't think that was It may have been, but I don't think so. I never thought it was that. But I know that every production man, when he comes in, either they say, well, I'm going to save you money, I'll get rid of so-and-so and so, and it may be so or it may not be so. But I know that he came with his daughter, and it was a new regime.
What, do you remember the move to 550?
Not vividly.
No.
No.
It was sort of done and then you showed up the next day to work?
I don't really remember how it was done. I know that one week we were there, the next week we were downtown.
That was okay too.
It didn't bother me. No.
So it was when you went to 550 that you started working in the shipping?
And when I first went to 550, I was the examiner. And the examiner is a person that when the clothes comes in before they're shipped, they look them over and cut off the strings or whatever else there is and fix whatever needs to be fixed, and if something needs to be fixed or whatever. So when we first moved to 550, that was my job. And after Dave Marcus came and they switched Mildred, sometime later, after maybe months or so, then I became like Dorothy Marcus's assistant in the shipping room.
And then they had a stage, and then they have shows.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in on the first shows, of course.
Yeah, I used to dress the models, yeah.
You still
But that wasn't part of my job, really. That area wasn't my job. That they had somebody to dress the models, but when they had an overflow, then they would call me to dress the models here.
Can you describe backstage at a fashion show?
It's like a Broadway production, yeah. There was one model in particular that I used to dress, Gillis McGill, and I dressed her, and then when she used to come, she wouldn't let anybody else dress her but me. So even if I wasn't my job, she would call for me, and I had to go and dress Gillis. But it's like a madhouse. Everybody's milling around, and you have to make very quick changes, and the shoes are flying here, and the hat is coming at you.
Well, who's the last person who sees the model before she goes out?
Miss Trigère stands at the door, and she sends them out, and Mr. Trigère used to call the numbers and the model, what she's wearing, and so forth and so on. He's on one side, and she's at this end, and she puts the jewelry on and makes sure that everything is...
People have told me different memories. Some people remember Pauline outside describing the clothes, which means that she couldn't have been inside putting the jewelry on.
I don't remember Pauline doing that, only as now and then. That wasn't her thing per se. She would, if it was something, a special show or something like that, or if it was something like sometimes they have like the salespeople from like Bergdorf and Saks. They would come in and they'd do special shows. Then she would do, because that's like a little social thing. But when we had big shows, I don't remember her.
She comes out at the end.
Right. She's saying whoever, it was Mr. Trigère in the beginning, and then after Mr. Trigère, JP used to do it.
So Lucy and Pauline would be the last people to stay with the model.
Right.
And your model's gone. You hang up the things and get ready for the next
Or you
show.
have to help somebody else with their dress, because sometimes the change is so fast that you can't get them in the clothes fast enough. So sometimes one is buttoning and one is pulling a zipper, or one is putting on a shoe. It's
who prepared all the clothes in the right order for the right
Lucy does. Lucy and Miss Trigère work together, and they decide which model is going to wear what and which sequence is going to follow, and then what accessory goes and what jewelry goes. And then sometimes when they get to the door, Miss Trigère decides she don't like what jewelry they're wearing, or what hat, or that scarf doesn't go, or that fur doesn't go, and she snatches off and she puts something else.
Do you remember preparations for trunk shows? Packing the things to send them off for trunk shows? I heard somebody say that Trigère was one of the first firms that had trunk shows.
That I wasn't part of my job. I know that it was, they do it in the showroom. It wasn't my job. I was in shipping. It wasn't my particular job. All we had to do was, once the clothes were lined up, is to get them into the trunk and out. That part was my part.
You remember the big red trunks?
Yeah.
Does everybody in the industry have those big trunks?
Not anymore.
But then in those days?
Yes, they either had red or black.
Uh-huh. Trying to see where you intersected with my father here. So you didn't really actually work together?
Your father and I?
Yeah. You would just sort of bump into each other during the middle of the day.
It wasn't, no, we didn't actually have a role of working together per se, except that your father and I had a very special relationship.
Why?
And I don't know how it happened to save my life. He was very special to me, and I was very special to him. Now, how it came about, I cannot tell you, to save my life. But I think it was his ambition to educate me, because he tried in the worst way. He really tried. I have so many books that I cannot begin to tell you. And I never liked the books that he gave me. Never, ever. And whenever I was reading something, he'd come by and he would snatch the book and he'd throw it in the garbage can, or he would tear pages out. And I used to get so annoyed. He says, it's just as easy to read something worthwhile as to read trash. And it used to upset him. And I must have had 6 different versions of learning French, and I never learned French. And he would come.
I love you anyway.
He would come and he would speak to me only in French. And sometimes I would have to answer. Sometimes he just would call me. But in a way, it was good because I learned a few words.
Mm.
But
he was being your father.
Yeah. You know,
he liked to be people's father.
Yes, he was very good that way. You know what he did for me one time? You were very young, and my kids were very young. And your birthday was very close to my son's birthday. It's in the same month. And one time, it was Butch's birthday, and he said, are you going to have a party? And I said, no, I'm not going to have a party. So he says, oh, every child should have a party. So your father came to 217 with you, Mary Louise, and shopping bags of food. And we had a party.
Is that the only time he came there?
No, he came a couple times. He came once to 369. He said, when he left, he said, it's a good thing they didn't want a piano. I never forgot that.
Who didn't want a piano?
That my mother-in-law and father-in-law didn't want a piano.
Because it was crowded.
It was really crowded. It was crowded. I thought that was very cute.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And when was the first time he invited you to his home?
I don't remember the first time I got invited there. But I went a few times, yeah.
But way back?
Yeah, once when he lived on Madison Avenue. I think it was 1376 or something like that, Madison Avenue. I went there.
And was the occasion a party?
No, I never went for a party at his house.
Not even a birthday party for Janie?
I don't remember ever going to a birthday party for Janie.
So what were you doing there?
I'm trying to remember, but I know that I went there, maybe to take something. I don't remember. And I know I went to Fifth Avenue. There was the apartment on Fifth Avenue that I went. But that wasn't the party either. I think I was delivering something. I don't ever remember going to a party there. I don't remember that, a party.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Gunn came, I was an ally between him and Gunn. He used to write notes, and give me the note to carry the gun, and she would answer, and I'd take the...
Why did you think he felt that he had to do that?
Because he didn't want anybody to know she was a model, and he didn't want anybody, probably didn't want anybody to know that they had a thing going.
She only worked there like, what, less than a year?
Maybe a year. Yeah, it was a short time.
Mm-hmm. So he was anxious that people would think it was kind of foolish, the age difference and stuff? Or what?
Maybe the age difference, and also maybe the model, I don't know.
So tell me the truth, the people in the office, the workers, all think it was strange when they found out?
Well, they just thought she was a little young. A little.
Or maybe he was a little old.
Or one of the, yeah, a little.
I can imagine what they were saying.
Mon petit chou, she used to call him.
She used to call him?
Yeah.
She got that from him, that's his expression.
Mon petit chou.
Yeah, my little cabbage.
I remember hearing that a lot.
So when they became a thing, she left and went to get a job someplace else.
Yeah.
And that was smart.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever overhear Pauline's comments about it?
I don't remember.
By that time, everybody knew you were his ally, right?
Yeah.
If they had something nasty to say about
They
it,
wouldn't say
it
it
in front of you, right? Now, I remember when I was a teenager working there in summers, and maybe it was that same summer, maybe it was another summer when I just come to visit, there were 2 other young black women, girls,
in the
came to
sample
work.
room.
Came to work. At one point they were both there. One was named Fiona.
Yeah, Fiona used to work in the sample room. Yeah. And then at some point later, Fiona got the job as the trimmings buyer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then there was another one, another girl.
I can't think of her name. But there was
But they were just, did they sort I was imagining that that's sort of how you started out. There was a Girl Friday helping out here.
Yeah, but they were in the sample room, and that was different than what.
Sewing?
Yeah, they
Oh, I didn't know
strictly
that.
sewing. Yeah, there was a black girl who was an operator. She was there for a long time. Her name was Viola Maynard, and she left and she went to teach dressmaking in high school in the Bronx.
Good for her.
She passed away too. But she was there for a long time, maybe
So
10 years.
Were there other young girls who came to work and came through and stayed a while and then left?
Not too many that I know of.
Now,
There's people come and go all the time, either they go leave to get more money or they get another job or whatever, but I don't.
when did Betty start working there?
Betty came right after we moved to 550.
And when did Lucy start in
Lucy
57?
started 57th Street.
So you said you remembered the day Lucy came for a job.
Came to interview.
Tell me about that.
She came. I think the reason that it sticks in my head is because I know that they took Lucy and let Robert go.
Uh-huh.
But Lucy was very small, petite. I'm big for my age. I've always been tall. So anybody that's petite, to me they're little. It's not that they're little in stature really, but it's just that that's how I see them because I was always so tall and gawky, I guess.
So, okay. So
But I didn't have anything to do with her when she came. I just know that she came and she was in the showroom and that she was being interviewed, and I knew that she was hired.
Esther, when did she join?
Esther came at 5:50,
Much later?
after Betty.
Years later?
I don't remember. Probably years later. Not that many years, but she hasn't been there that long.
So by the time Betty came, you were working in shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And you stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
So Dorothy Marcus left and then Joe Peck started.
And someone else came after Dorothy Marcus, and he became a partner, so we let him go, and then Joe Peck came.
He became a partner in what?
In Trigère. Partner means that he was stealing.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. No. Oh, I've never been a partner in anything.
Yes. His name was Jack Brothers.
Jack Brothers?
Yeah, his name was Jack
Brothers.
Yes, like Joyce Brothers. His name was Jack Brothers.
So
and
he became a brother in the business.
Yeah.
So we let him go, and then Joe came.
And then Joe Peck came, yeah.
And what was it like working with Joe?
Joe was a nut, but him and I got along. So Joe was a very nervous type person.
Yeah.
But if you know what he was like, then you can get along. I can get along with anybody if I have to. But he wasn't,
So give me the names of the people in the shipping room that you remember, all the names.
Bill Hall, who came right after the war, and he started at 57th Street. He was tall, elegant, good-looking man who Pauline was very fond of Bill Hall.
What was he doing in the shipping room?
He was a shipping clerk. He used to pack the clothes and send them.
She had the hots for him.
Yes, she did. In her own little way, yes.
This is in 557th Avenue.
He started 57th Street and came down to 550. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, you were going to tell me Vincent started in 57th Street and
Joey started.
Joe there too. And then so they moved.
They were cutters, yeah.
They moved to 550, and then when it got too big, they moved to
39th Street.
They moved to 39th Street. When did they get the place on 39th Street?
Dates are not, I don't remember exactly, but...
How old were your kids? That's a good way of, things like that.
That I don't know either.
Okay.
Because
business was good going.
Business was growing, and they didn't have... Yeah.
I got the impression from the clippings that I've been looking at the Met and FIT, the 53, 54, 55 were really good years. They were powerful years. She was photographed by Avedon and all that kind of stuff.
The business really grew. The first 10 years we were in 550. I mean, it like leaps and bounds. Really, really took off.
Now, Jean-Pierre came to work there right after college for a short while?
He came and worked for a short while, and then he left.
What was he doing for a short while?
Whatever they do up in the office, he was...
Oh, accounting stuff.
Up front, yeah. And then there was some sort of friction.
Like short while, like years or like months?
Maybe a year. It wasn't that long. It wasn't like he was there for a long time. He was like maybe there a year. And then he left, and I remember he went to do something for Klein's or something in the accounting or something like that, which didn't last very long.
And then where did he go?
I don't remember what he did. The next thing I know, he's back at Trigère.
He was working at Max's Kansas
City. He was,
what was he doing there?
I don't know. When I saw him there, he was playing guitar with no shoes on, so I don't remember exactly what.
You went to visit? You went for an evening there?
Well, Max's Kansas City, they used to have steaks and shows, so everybody could go.
So you went there one evening and you saw him there?
Yeah. And there was a lot of people from Trigère that went.
Okay, so then, were you aware of any of the goings on in terms of Sioma, Mr. Trigère leaving or wanting to leave, or I mean, weren't the
when Trigère, when JP came back to Trigère, that's when it really was very, very evident.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Jamie, I don't remember the year. I really don't remember the year.
Was it?
I don't even remember the year that Mr. Trigère went to California.
I think it was 73.
I don't remember.
Well, so
when JP came back to work at Trigère the second time, that's when the friction really was very evident that everybody... JP was very nasty to your father, very nasty, and they would talk in French, and You didn't know what they were saying, but you know that they were fighting.
How about Pauline? What role did she play in this? Here's her brother and her son. How did she handle that?
Well,
Was that was apparent?
well, they spoke French most of the time. They didn't argue in English, so you don't know what they were saying. At least I didn't know what they were saying. But she must have taken JP's part because Mr. Trigère got moved out of his office, and JP got that office, and Mr. Trigère moved into the room where the production man goes, which was not nice from my point of view at all.
Do you think that they moved him or that he moved himself?
Well, I don't know who moved who, but I know that he left his office, which was his office. It belonged to him and had been his since we'd been there. And then he went into this little thing on the side, which upset anybody who knew him.
Did the employees used to talk to each other?
Sure, they talk about it.
Who would you talk to about these things? Everybody.
Everybody. Betty, the Joe Peck, Lou, the piece goods man, whoever was there, we talk among ourselves. It's a shame to talk to that man like that.
Am I correct if I say that people found it hard to deal with the employees? Would feel that they had an ally in Robert and not in Pauline? Or is that my fantasy?
No, that's true. You would see that he would, if you needed a friend, Robert would be more of the friend than Pauline. You can't get that close to Pauline. You can get very close to Robert, but you couldn't get that close to Pauline.
So who were her close people? Betty?
Betty's very close to her. Very close to her.
Betty didn't like Robert so much, did she?
Betty loved Robert, but Robert didn't like Betty.
Oh. How long can you keep loving him if he doesn't love you back?
They used to fight like cats and dogs. He couldn't stand Betty.
Oh.
And Betty liked him.
Uh-huh.
You know how you like somebody, whether they like you, so you try to do things to please them, and the harder she tried to please him, the more difficult it became to please him. And I don't know why that was, except that, I don't know. I couldn't figure that out.
Still with Lucille, this is slide 3, and we're talking about Robert Trigère.
We were talking about his forgetfulness. I don't remember when it started, but he couldn't remember people's names, and he would come and he'd say, who am I working with? Who am I working with? And you have to tell him the name of the buyer that he's working with.
Do you remember what the year that was? Who placed that?
Probably late 60s or early 70s.
Do you remember him taking out that long card out of his breast pocket? You know, one that says Pauline Trigère at the top.
Swatch cards.
With his pen. Mm-hmm. Is that a gesture you see him doing?
Yes.
Trying to get somebody's name?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I started piecing that together as one of the techniques that he may have been using to try to recall stuff that was disappearing. I asked you about sort of paranoid kind of feelings, you know, feeling attacked, and his trait of not forgetting if somebody had done something bad to him, it would be remembered, engraved in stone.
Mm-hmm. The only way that I remember it because when he and JP used to fight, it used to bother him so much, and he never, forgot. I know that he carried that with him a lot.
Did he write you notes of instructions?
Yes.
Did it drive you nuts?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of notes were they?
He used to get notes about everything.
Like what you were wearing?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. If he didn't like something, or if it wasn't the colors, or Pauline does that too.
What?
My God, what is that? Now, since we moved around the corner, she doesn't do it because there's no place there to dress. But even at 5, when we still at 5:50, if I came in something that wasn't Trigère or wasn't, it was the end of the world. Because number one, I guess because you're there and you're selling the clothes and whatnot, and she wanted you to look a certain way or you wanted to whatever. But if I wore something that wasn't, you got it right away. My God, what is that?
Did you used to wear other clothes to work and then change when you got to work?
No, I never did that. The clothes were never issued as far as my job was concerned until I got into the shipping room and more or less became very visible where the buyers were concerned. And then I would get a blouse or a skirt or something like that. And it was like a uniform. You had to look a certain way for the buyers.
Did you like that or not?
It didn't bother me too much, but I remember once that Mr. Trigère said something about something I had. I said, if you don't like what I'm wearing, you have to give me something to wear.
Good for you. And what did he say?
He did.
Oh.
Yeah. And at that point, that's when I started to get clothes, because I didn't get things from in the beginning. It's after I got to 5:50 that I started to get clothes from Trigère.
Would you ask for the piece you wanted?
If there was something that I really wanted, yeah, I would ask. And sometimes you could buy the fabric and the contractor would make it for you. That's how I first started to get my clothes.
You would buy the fabric?
And
the contractor would make it, no money exchange.
You didn't, right. And you got the fabric at cost.
It's expensive fabric anyway.
Yeah, but it's at cost. It's a different price than,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and then sometimes at the end of the season, if they sell fabric off price, you can, because they job lot.
Right.
You could buy, if they're selling fabric, you could buy for whatever they're selling it.
So toward the later years, when you were noticing he would forget, what did you think? He was just getting older.
He would, yes.
And when it was decided
I never dreamed he had Alzheimer's.
I don't think anybody did.
That never occurred to me.
And when the plan was to go off and open a store in California, how did that strike people at the office?
I think that the way we talked among ourselves was that it was his way of getting away from being humiliated the way he was humiliated there.
How would the humiliation be? What kind of things
The
would happen?
point, just the idea of moving from the high echelon to like being an office boy. To his office in the front. And then he's shunted back in the back. That's how I saw it.
He was feeling kicked out by Pauline and Jean-Pierre. And
I felt he was kicked out too. And the average person that you talked to or worked there felt the same thing. We felt that he got the shaft.
What was he doing when he was in that place? I mean, what job was he doing at that point?
He was
no longer in charge of the money.
No, and he wasn't. But he still worked with the buyers and things. He still. So. Toward the end, I don't think he was going on the road anymore. But he used to, go with the trunks and things like that. But toward the end, he wasn't doing that anymore.
But you, who were seeing his forgetfulness, did you have questions about whether he'd be able to do this successfully?
No, that didn't occur to me. But I didn't see his forgetfulness as a real issue. It wasn't that large a thing. I just thought that it was just something that happened. I didn't attach any,
Do you remember how quietly he would speak sometimes?
Very quietly, yes.
Always? Or only under certain circumstances?
Well, to me, he was a very genteel person anyway, very fine and whatnot. He would never raise his voice. I don't remember except in French. Because you know how they go, it's very, emotional.
Animated.
Yeah. But I don't ever remember him really raising his voice, screaming that way. I don't remember him that way. Not like Pauline carries on. I don't remember him doing
And
that.
Jean-Pierre?
Jean-Pierre, he screams all the time. If you ask him what time of the day, he barks at you.
When Robert left, how did the place change in any way? Or did it just was a different phase?
It was a different phase. I don't remember any drastic change.
Yeah. And, you were in the shipping at this point, so you would see what was being sold and what was not being sold. Was it a period of time, like a political period of time when the business was getting worse? Or when did it start really getting bad in terms of sales?
It started, I would say, in the 80s, the late 80s, really bad.
Is it because stores were closing down, or is it because the stores that were still open were ordering much less?
They were ordering less. As the prices got higher, the stores ordered less, and some stores could no longer buy our merchandise because we were priced out of their particular market.
And in terms of the pricing, this was not something you did, right?
No. Well, see, as the economy changes, you have to change with it. People made more money, so you had to absorb that. Fabric costs more. What shipping costs more. So as things rose, then you had to charge more for your garments in order to cover, and the higher you go, the smaller your market became.
Who are still the loyal big buyers?
Today, you have very few. You don't have anything, really, because there's nobody left. Number one, most of the stores are conglomerates. So you don't have anybody that's loyal. Everything is a computer. The loyal people like Sarah Frederick, she died, and the people that took over her business, it's gone. Martha, who was loyal from the word go, she no longer has the stores in New York, and it's the stores in Florida. I mean, it's like not like being in business. Everything is COD. So it's no fun.
Who are you selling to now?
Saks, Bergdorf in New York. That's all in New York. You don't have any of the specialty stores. The stores on Madison Avenue, like we used to have loads and loads of stores. There's nobody left on Madison Avenue. Sarah Frederick's is gone. Polly's is gone. Martha's is gone. There's nobody left.
What kind of clothes are Saks and Bergdorf buying? A little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything, whatever daytime, suits. We don't have the...
How big was the last collection?
About 60 pieces.
And in the biggest days, how big was a collection of the summer season?
Maybe 150 pieces, 160 pieces.
Out of a collection of 150 pieces, how many of them would die by the wayside because there were just not enough orders on a good year?
If you have a big collection like that, you might lose 50 styles. You might wind up with 100 that really sold well, and maybe some that didn't sell too much. But it depends on what garment it was, because sometimes it paid you to make 2 or 3.
Because they were expensive evening gowns.
With beading and whatnot. So, sometimes it was worth it.
Remember that green feathered item in the 60s?
Green.
Ostrich feathers, green ostrich feathers on a white sheer. It's part of the museum collection. You remember that one?
Well, there's a few with feathers.
Yeah. Did that sell?
Some of them sold, yeah. There was one black chiffon with green feathers that sold very well.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That sold very well.
Yeah.
Like in the dozens? What does pretty well mean?
For that sort of thing, maybe you had about 50 or 60.
Oh, that's a lot. Uh-huh.
And Ruth Price loves her. She used to have a shop in Atlantic City called Needlecrafts. They went out of business too, but she
Needlecrafts?
Yeah, in Atlantic City.
It doesn't sound like a place that would sell expensive dresses.
But they did, and they used to sell very well. That's going back.
So Bergdorf and Saks.
That's all that's left in New York.
So where are the other big buyers now?
They're not that big.
So how much is an order from Saks now?
Maybe 80 pieces. We used to get 200.
And 80 for all their stores?
All the stores throughout the country.
And how much did you used to get? Sorry?
Maybe 200 pieces, sometimes more.
So out of this collection of 60, let's say, how many are going to go by the wayside here?
Maybe 10, 12. And some of them, even some of the ones that are not discarded, some of them you may not get about 5 or 6 pieces. Where we used to have a cutting ticket of 200 garments. Now if you get a cutting ticket of 50, you're lucky.
So then the people who are still working there, I mean, they'd have to be incredibly foolish if they didn't see that they're now working for a dying company.
Everybody knows that it's on borrowed time. But you don't have a choice. There's no place to go.
There are no other jobs.
The industry is dying. It's a dead industry.
That young man who's the production man now, what's his name?
Don Howard.
He's got all the energy of a young man. I feel for him. When in a year or whatever, when he's looking for another job, is he going to have an easy time of it?
He's going to have a difficult time unless somebody else comes out, because they're still making clothes, though a lot of them are made, wherever foreign countries, they have showrooms here, they have patterns here, so he can make patterns. He can go from something else besides being a production man. He can go in some of the phase of it and still make a living because he can grade. He's multi-talented.
Are you aware, in terms of the industry and the employees, when somebody would leave Trigère's, were they marketable?
If you work for Pauline Trigère, you could work anywhere. That's the reputation.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a tough master, and if she kept you any length of time, you had to be good. Yes, it was a selling point for you.
So this is good for him, in other words.
Yes.
He's learning there.
Pauline Trigère was a marvelous learning experience for whoever came in the door. It was for me. It certainly was for me.
But you weren't really working with her, were you?
Not with her per se, but even so.
Well, I mean, if the design part is what was really strong and the business end was the sort of the weaker part, then you didn't get the best that you could have gotten from that place.
All right. Number one, you didn't get the best that you got out of the place because she doesn't let you do your job. That's the problem. She hires people who will have the talent to do the job, and then she tells them what to do. So you can't, she doesn't let you do your job.
How did Benny last there?
Benny Smith?
Yeah.
He
I just took a name for just out of the blue.
He and Pauline used to fight. But
They respected each other.
Yes, because Benny knew his job and she knew he knew his job. And if he fought with her long enough, she would let him have his way because she knew he was right.
What other people were there like that? Is he alive?
He may or may not be. He retired.
Well, he is or he isn't.
But I don't, after they
You don't know,
leave,
I'm joking.
he may or may not be, but I would have no knowledge of whether he's alive or not. But the last time I heard about him, which was like about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he was still living.
Where does he live?
In Brooklyn someplace, if he's not down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Because he got his pension money, and he got $56,000 from his pension. And his son, who was in the investment business, invested Benny's money, and he did very well. His son was written up in the Times and whatnot, and he made Benny a lot of money. Made Benny a lot of money with that $56,000.
Now, when did the pension plan always existed? Or when
The
did it
pension
start?
plan started, the pension plan is only about 20 years. And it
20
ended,
years ago.
It's ended, they stopped paying into it in 1989.
This is
So-
a voluntary thing that the company does.
Did, yeah,
So it went on for about 20 years.
about 20 years.
So he picked up $56,000 in pension. in
Well,
20
it had a
years.
lot to do with how old you were when you started, when the pension plan started, because your age had a lot to do with it. And then
Is that to your advantage or disadvantage?
it's to your advantage, and the salary that you make is to your advantage.
Obviously, yeah.
See, age, because when I started, I was younger, so my age would make me have less, that means that I would be in the pension longer. So I would have a longer time, so it would be less, but Benny had a shorter time and whatnot, so you,
So when you are you taking it out already? The pension?
I would like to.
But you can't until,
God knows what happened to it. In 1989, they stopped paying into it, and in December 1989, someone came in from the investment firm and said that, gave us papers to sign, and this is what's going to happen, and in 3 months you're going to get the money, and you have to decide what you want to do with the money, and blah, 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 and they talked to you about the taxes and so forth and so on, and reinvest it and whatnot.
and?
Where's the money? I
When
haven't
was
seen
that?
it. That was in 1989.
Have you asked anybody?
Sure, constantly.
And?
The story is that the first company who was the management for the trustees, or whatever you want to call it, for the plan, the woman who was handling it disappeared from the face of the earth, and it laid there, and then that firm gave it to another firm, and then that firm gave it to a third firm. And it seems that it's a small thing as far as investment is concerned, and nobody wants to bother with it. That's as much as I can get from it. Every time you ask JP, he doesn't want to be bothered. And he tells you to call Philip. Philip is the lawyer who's handling it now, and Philip doesn't want to bother either. So I don't know what's going on. But every time you ask JP something, don't worry about the money is there. But in
So
the
when you
meantime,
retire-
Harriet is dead and gone, and she never saw a penny of hers.
Does the family have the right to claim it?
Yeah. It goes into her estate, is what I heard, because someone, I think a nephew who is a lawyer, had spoke to JP about Harriet's thing, and he said it was for the estate. So it goes into...
So you have to
Because
retire, you have to retire in order to find out what happened to that money?
No, the money, as long, once the pension plan is ended, you're supposed to get your money, regardless of whether you get it in a lump sum and pay taxes, or whether you reinvest it in whatnot. Once the plan is
You're going to need this
finished.
to live on, aren't you?
Sure, if they ever give it to you.
But it's not, it's theirs to give or not to give? Because they did the investing of the money?
How do you explain this? I don't know how it works.
Right,
Because
it's
everybody says, are you crazy? You mean tell me you 3 years and you don't have your money? Yes, it's 3 years and I don't have the money. But nobody understands why. And you can't explain why. Because you don't know yourself. Who do you talk to? The money, JP, who is Trigère trustee, you know, can you talk to JP? No, you can't. Or he tells you, don't worry about the money is there.
Did you say, I need the money now?
Harriet certainly needed her money, but she didn't get it. It seems that
So you're going to be leaving with a lot of bitterness?
no, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter.
Well, how are you going to live when you stop work?
I'll survive.
Well, you have Social Security.
Yeah, and I have a little money.
Good.
I have a little money. My son I had insurance on my son, and I didn't use that money. I put it away.
How come you had an insurance on your son? Is that a little unusual?
Everybody, don't you have insurance? You don't have insurance on your children? No, I did. My
You
son
had insurance on me.
Oh, no?
No.
Well.
I was never taught those things. My
Oh.
father didn't like that kind of stuff.
Oh.
And he always gave me a sense of money was not something that was important. And he never taught me practical stuff about this at all.
Oh. Well.
So I've always sort of lived by the skin of my teeth.
Well, no, I've always, not a lot of insurance, but I had insurance.
What was the point of having insurance on one
What if
children?
what if they die? Where do you get the money to bury them?
Oh, okay.
So maybe your father had money. I didn't have money.
My mother arranged when they were divorced. Oh, I have to go back and talk to you about my mother. My mother arranged when they were divorced that he would sign an agreement that whatever would happen, 1/3 of whatever he left would be left to Janie.
Mm-hmm.
And she left it with my brother. And he gave it to me when Sioma died. And I looked at this and I laughed. I said, but didn't we all know that Sioma would leave with nothing? So I'll have 1/3 of nothing. And that's what I got.
Yeah.
I never looked for money anyplace, nor did I expect it from anyone. And certainly there was never a sense of planning for these things. He didn't have insurance for me. And he didn't have insurance. I don't know what insurance he had on himself, but I'm sure Gun was the recipient.
But Trigère must have had an insurance on your father.
I have no idea.
It's not something that I know for a fact, but I'm sure they must have had insurance because they insured.
Well, in that case, it went to Gun or something.
Or maybe went into the business.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
No, I don't really know either, but I know that most firms insure their people. Like it's say
But once he left the company, they didn't have to do that
Adele
anymore.
Simpson. It's true.
And then he would get that income or something. He would get it.
Well, I guess that would depend on his leaving and what the circumstances was and so forth and so on. But I can't see them canceling an insurance policy.
Well, then he would have canceled it.
Now, if it's the firm's insurance,
Once
Trigère,
he's no longer working there, they don't need to insure him.
that's true too.
Can you tell me about Julio?
Mr. Bergheim? What can I tell you about him? He's a nice man. He's been around a long
A long
time.
time.
Mm-hmm.
What was his role in the company ever? Did you get a feeling that he was involved?
No, I don't think he would. I never thought he was involved in the firm, but Trigère, no. I thought he was just Miss Pauline's boyfriend. That's the only impression that I ever got. He may or may not have had something to do with the firm, but I was not aware. I was not aware of it.
So there's nothing interesting to tell about him as far as you're concerned?
No. How I personally feel, I think he's cheap. He always wants something for nothing. He never comes unless he wants a piece of jewelry or a necktie or a scarf. He's always, that bothers me. It shouldn't bother me because it's not my stuff, but
That's okay.
that's how I see him. He's nice though.
So how about the family members who come and get dresses?
family members.
Yeah, like wives of Mr. Trigère's wife, Mr. Trigère's daughter, or
Well, that's family. That's a different
Philip's
story.
wife.
That's a different story. Family's supposed to get.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I say it's just how I saw it. You know.
Do you remember my mother?
Yes.
Tell me what you remember.
I didn't know her that well.
What you saw her?
I saw her, yes.
Tell me about that year, that period, or whatever you remember.
I don't.
Did she used to come into the office?
Not that much. I remember that when they went to get married, I remember, I think it was, they went, how does that go now? I'm trying to remember exactly how it was. Because I don't think they were married in New York City. I think they went...
In Westchester.
I know it was a car ride someplace to get married. It wasn't... And I remember vaguely, I don't remember, you know.
Mm-hmm. They made the dress for her there?
I don't remember that.
They must have. She didn't come in for a fitting or anything? So what do you remember about her?
Not very much. Not very much. I didn't see her that often.
Did she come in with the other two children?
I don't remember seeing the other two children.
When did you ever see them, ever?
I did meet them.
You didn't?
I did. I'm trying to remember how and when.
Were they little? Or were they adults?
No, I think they were bigger.
So maybe they never came to the office.
I don't remember seeing them in the office.
So, could you pick up body language about how Pauline felt about this person?
No.
Was the new Mrs. Trigère, was she...
Dominant, strong personality is what I got.
How did you get that?
Just the way she carried herself
So
and
did
the way
come
she
in like she
spoke.
was the boss's wife and she was going to make sure everybody knew it? I'm trying to give you ideas just to get you going.
She was very forceful, very,
Was
what's
she
the word?
bossy or was she pleasant? Did she seem like... What?
She wasn't unpleasant, but
Distant?
a type of person who got what she wanted, you know, like if she said move this, you were expected to move this, or whatever. She was, to me, was a strong, dominant personality.
So were you disappointed when they got married?
I wasn't disappointed. Surprised.
Surprised. That's interesting. Why?
I just never, he was...
Forever bachelor.
Yeah, and just like being charming to all the ladies. I didn't see him, I didn't see him as being with one particular person.
And did his choice surprise you?
I think
What surprised you?
the type of person that she was. She wasn't glamorous like the models and whatnot. And I don't think she cared that much about fancy clothes. And it was just a different type.
Why do you think she didn't care about fancy clothes?
Because she didn't dress fancy. The way I saw her, she didn't dress fancy. You know, like the models with all the whatnot.
Now, she was also 20 years younger than he was. Now, back to another time when I asked you, what did they say at work when he picked a woman who was, I don't know, 35? Did they say, oh my God, why is he picking such a young woman?
Well, at that time...
This is 57th Street.
Yeah. I don't think we discussed the bosses among ourselves at that particular time. That was a different era. But I think everybody was a little surprised that he got married. I don't think anybody... You know how you see somebody as I don't know, I thought he was like a ladies' man. All the ladies loved him, and he was very charming and whatnot. And
Did you notice any difference in him after you got married? First of all, they lived at 120 Central Park South for a while. I don't know how long. Then they bought a house and moved to
Dobbs Ferry, yeah.
And so now he became a commuter. Did he seem different in terms of his schedule and his life? Did anything change?
Not to mind. I don't remember any drastic changes or anything like that.
And then you were married and pregnant, and then all of a sudden he had a baby too. So that was kind of exciting. And do you remember anything about that time? Besides that you were pregnant, you had a baby and all that. I mean, at work.
No.
Did he bring the baby in?
No, I don't remember.
And then was anybody surprised when they found out that he was separated? Because that happened pretty quickly.
It did happen quickly, yes. I frankly think that they were just as surprised with the separation as it was with the marriage, you know. They didn't expect him to get married, and then they didn't, I don't know, it just was, all seemed like a very short period of time.
Do you remember his mood? Was he more tense, more anxious? Was what was going on in his personal life apparent in some way at work, or was he able to cover it up completely?
I think he covered very well. I don't remember any stressful things or anything like that.
How about Lucille Trigère?
Mama Trigère?
Mama Trigère, is that what you call her?
Yeah, she was a beautiful lady. She was very quiet and ladylike and whatnot, as far as we were concerned. And very devoted to Jack Kareem.
Oh, when did Jack start working there?
When we came to 550, he came and he worked. He was in the Peace Goods Department with Lou Rothbard. I don't remember exactly where he came, but he was there. And he was there for...
Did he start like as a young man, or was
No.
Do you know what he did before?
No. I didn't know anything about him at all until he came to Trigère, and then he was like a cousin or something. It's the way I understood it.
Did it make it awkward?
No. He did his job. He worked in the Peace Goods, and he did his job, and he was just one of the workers. It wasn't, wasn't awkward or anything. But I know that he was a favorite of Mama Trigère's, because whenever she came, she would...
This is her brother's child.
Well, I didn't know. I know somewhere in the mind it was a cousin or something, but I didn't know how it came about.
Pauline and Sioma's first cousin. So did he act with everybody else as a family member of the Trigères, or like a fellow worker?
A fellow worker.
Did he used to complain about anything?
No, he didn't complain about anything, no. He was just one of the workers. That was Jack's attitude.
But if you had to gossip about one of the bosses, you would avoid doing it in front of Jack?
No.
No,
You would do it with Jack because he was one of you. He wasn't one of them. He was
But
one
he
of you.
didn't take sides or anything?
No.
He was diplomatic. That's interesting.
He went to California too, didn't he?
Yeah. He had a sister out there, and now he's dead and she's dead. These are all the cousins who were in America before Robert and Pauline came, because Cecile's brother, Solomon, came to... His name was Solomon. How could his name have been Solomon? That wouldn't work. His name was Solomon. See, because Ashkenazi Jews don't name children after living relatives. And my father's name was Solomon. He was named after a grandfather. So it's unusual.
So how did his name get to be Sioma if his name
It's a
is...
Russian nickname of Solomon.
Oh.
It is. I've seen it in books even.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert, he invented. When he came here, he just took the name. I don't know where and why. and when they came over, it was Triger, and they changed it when they were here.
Mm-hmm.
And Pauline is named after a grandmother named Paula Rosen Corinne. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me more about Cecile, because I really am interested in her. I have only the vaguest little memories, and I'm trying to figure out
don't know her.
if she was a tough person or a pushover.
No, she wasn't a pushover. Soft, gentle type person. She was more like your father in comparison to Pauline. If because Pauline is not soft. I wouldn't call Pauline a soft person, though she has a heart.
Yes.
I wouldn't call her a soft person, but Mama Trigère was soft and whatnot. She could say what she had to say, not scream and get whatever it was that she wanted.
Did Pauline seem attentive to her, or
Attentive, yes. Mm-hmm.
or did she was like she a rebellious daughter sometimes? Did they fight?
Well, not in the office, no.
Mm. Did she have her clothes made there too?
I don't remember her having clothes made there, no.
When she came in, she was wearing her own things that had nothing to do with the company?
Yeah, I don't remember her being dressed Trigère clothes. She might have had, I just don't remember. She didn't come that often.
Uh-huh.
But I don't remember her as...
Do you remember her and Robert interacting? No.
No. Mm-mm.
Buttons. That little room with the buttons.
The trimming department, yeah.
Who were the people who worked there? I remember Seal
Marcus was there. Seal Marcus was there. Reva was there.
Reva went off to make a fortune.
She made a fortune. She sure did. She sure did. I used to help Reva when she first started.
Yeah, how?
Yeah. She first started, she used to make umbrellas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in her apartment. And I went, and another girl from Trigère went after work, and her mother and father, and we in her apartment.
What do you mean you made umbrellas? How do you make umbrellas?
That's what she did. She made umbrellas. That's
You mean she would sew the fabric of the over the umbrella?
Mm-hmm. They sew the fabrics. They were little small umbrellas. At that time, you didn't have pocket umbrellas when Reva first started, and she was the one that started like what they call cocktail umbrellas, umbrellas to go to the theater with and things like that. They were small.
But for rain.
Yeah.
And so she would buy the frame of the umbrella.
She had the frames wherever I don't know where she got them. She had the frames, and she used to make the
coverings.
The coverings for the umbrella, yeah.
Were they interesting?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they had the umbrella was inside of a cover. Also stitched.
Made.
Mm-hmm.
What, did she have a whole bunch of sewing machines in her house?
No, she just had one machine, then she got like a little place.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but she started in her apartment.
Uh-huh. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pauline, do you think Pauline was envious?
I don't think so. I think she was like a mentor,
Uh-huh.
Reva would ask her advice and she would, and fabrics and things like that. I don't think she was really envious. I never thought of that. No. They're good friends now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think they're good friends because they like each other? They're good friends because they're successful?
I know Reva likes Pauline.
Oh, okay.
Reva truly likes Pauline, and I think Pauline likes her.
Okay.
I don't think it's. No, I think they're like friends.
Okay. What else could we cover? When your sons died,
Mm-hmm.
how did the people in the business? How did my family? How did the people at work respond to you?
Like a family. Well, Trigère is a little family in itself. Everybody sort of clings together or rallies around or whatever it is. And everybody was very comforting and whatnot and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And shocked. It was a very traumatic thing.
Both times.
Yeah. Well, Butch had cancer, so when somebody has cancer, it's not the same thing as somebody getting shot and they're here 1 minute and the next minute they're gone. It's
What kind of cancer did he have?
he had lung cancer.
Did he ever work at Trigère's?
No.
None of your boys did.
Mm-mm.
How old was he when he died?
Butch or Stevie?
Butch.
Butch was 41. He would have been 40. If he died in June, he would have been 42 in November. He was born in 47 and he died in 89. So he would have been 42 in
He didn't have a
November.
family.
No.
Never married.
Mm-mm.
And Steve? How old was he?
26.
How old were they? What difference was there in age?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference in age between them?
Almost 4 years.
What year did Steve die?
77.
Yeah. I don't think anybody told me. I found out later.
Your father didn't say anything? Your father was in California at that time because he sent me a telegram and then he wrote me a letter.
The family, in terms of me, they were very uncommunicative. I would not find out things all the time. I didn't know that Jean-Pierre was getting married.
Really?
I was never invited.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. I'm not.
That seems strange.
Yeah, it is strange. Fourth, I got an announcement of the invitation to the wedding, like a week before the wedding, or very short.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden they remembered they hadn't sent me an invitation, kind of thing.
Oh.
I wasn't going to go out to Chicago anyway. We were not close.
Mm-hmm.
We'd had a quarrel right after my wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking now, so I'm going to turn this off.
Milton Dash is
Yeah, what
dead.
did he used to do, Milton Dash? I remember.
Maya Woolens.
Oh, he was my
Yeah. Yeah, his wife is in the business now, but now it's called Lafitte.
Uh-huh. What about Lazar?
I only saw him a couple of times at 57th Street, and he was a contractor, a tailor who made suits. And it was a short period of time. I don't think he was there for more than one season, if I remember correctly.
Do you remember ever seeing Sioma and him together?
No.
Was Sioma not in the building when he was there?
I'm not sure.
And do you ever see Pauline and him together?
Well, yes, because
They would talk?
Yeah, they talked at this particular time when he was a contractor.
Did you know who he was?
Yeah.
But you knew he was the ex-husband?
I didn't know he was ex-husband. I knew that he was Miss Trigère's husband. I didn't know he was an
Or in the
ex-husband.
process of ex?
I didn't know that. I know that he was her husband and he was a contractor.
Oh.
That's how, but it was a short period of time, very short.
Do you remember what he looked like? Can you see him?
Not really. Not tall in stature.
No, doesn't...
He looked like Philip.
Right. Philip looks like...
Yeah. But not A tall man.
Right.
Yeah, more Philip than JP, yeah.
Right.
But that's a long time ago, and I only that one short period.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I saw something before that rang a bell.
Okay, we'll just go on from there. Do you remember Engels?
Annie Ettinger,
Oh,
here.
and Engels? Do you remember these?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who were they? Do you remember a book? Yeah.
Was it a cleaning store or something like that? I don't remember. Fanny Ettinger used to be the production lady on 57th Street. Her sister was Belle Ellen Allenberg, and she was the bookkeeper. And when we moved to 550, Miss Fanny was no longer the production person. She didn't go to 550. And Belle didn't come either as a bookkeeper. Press, Nettie Rosenstein.